Good morning, everyone. You're listening to I'm watching the Fueling Growth podcast. My name's Phil Seaver, and I am your host for the next 20 minutes of this latest episode. Now, I am joined here in the podcast studio, which is also the office, by Martyn King, who is the Managing Director of Fuel. Martyn, hello.
Hey, Phil.
How are you?
Yeah, very well. Thank you, sir. Very well.
Good.
Looking forward to this.
I have to say, we've talked about this before. The powers that be don't like it when we're here on our own just chatting, because that would just be two middle-aged men chatting, and no one wants that. It would be very dull and boring. So I understand you have a guest. Could you introduce your guest, please?
I would love to. And normally on this, I'll say this is somebody I've known for a long period of time, and we've done lots of work together. In this case, we haven't actually. We've had a couple of conversations around a topic which I find really interesting, and I think it's a really important topic for growth. So I'm very pleased to introduce you to Carola Becker, who is about to talk to us about workplace well-being.
Well, Carola, welcome to our podcast, our humble podcast.
Thank you.
You are, of course, we're pleased that you're here. I think the issue of well-being in the workplace and also well-being for growth is a massively important issue. It's not something that it was 20 years ago. It has moved on hugely, thank God. And we're now in a position where we can talk about this openly and honestly. And that's what today is, an open and honest conversation about well-being. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you for the invite.
Well, let's kick off. I mean, how long have you been in the industry? And give us a bit of background on yourself and prove to us that you are an expert and Martyn hasn't just picked someone off the street to come in and talk about well-being.
Okay. No, nothing but a little bit of pressure at the beginning. Yes. So I'm doing this job for almost 10 years now. I'm a nutritionist by trade, a fitness instructor, and a sports nutrition advisor as well, which means that I really see lots of aspects of workplace well-being. And I think it's just, thankfully now, just like you said, it's a massively important topic. Businesses and employees are taking it more and more serious, and so they should.
So let me ask you the first question. Let's sort of get straight into it. We don't want to hang around. What does workplace well-being mean to you?
I think the main thing about workplace well-being is that it is such a big topic in the meantime that really it's difficult to find a way through it. If you're somebody, your boss tells you, let's just do some workplace well-being, and you say, oh, where to start? And for me, it's all about the science, because we're still looking at workplace well-being from a viewpoint of, let's do something. Let's just tick a box sometimes, if I'm honest. And that is not how it's supposed to be. It needs to be a strategic point. It needs to be something that supports employees as well as the business. You need to have an ROI at the moment. You have to have a good one.
I mean, look, you touched on this, and I don't want to, deviate too far from what we're talking about, but you talked off air about it not being, or being as far removed as possible from a fluffy approach strategy.
Yeah.
It's not that anymore, is it?
No, thankfully not. And I think it's driven by businesses who really would like to see results at the end, and rightly so, because you need to create something where your employees benefit in the same way your business does.
I think it's one of those topics, actually, or one of those subjects that it's very easy to dismiss as not being able to generate a return on investment, as you say, and to see what rewards and what's in it for a company. But we're going to come on to those in a minute. But for the time being, why would you say it's important for organisations to have something in place for well-being?
I think that the main problem is that we're looking at, I think according to the latest numbers, it's 130 million working days lost per year due to staff sickness. And that is not...
That's a lot.
Yeah. And it's not only that number. It means that the people who are off sick, obviously, hopefully recovering, but the rest of the team needs to cover their work. And then their stress levels are increasing. So when we're looking at staff not being well for whatever reason, it has an impact on the team. It has an impact on the business. It obviously has an impact on the employee as well. We need to do something, especially now with staffing problems, with everything else we're looking at, all the pressures businesses are under. We need to look after the people who work for us.
Someone I know very well works in the recruitment of nurses, and she was saying that when you have someone that is off sick with stress, and you can imagine it's a hugely stressful job, the next thing that happens is the hospital has to pay, or the trust has to pay a huge amount of money to get someone in.
Yeah.
But then, of course, while that's happening, the people that are there, as you say, they're struggling because they're having to cover everyone's workload until that person's replaced. They then go off sick as well. The next thing, it's an endless cycle.
Yeah.
And it's a real problem. And I imagine it's not just in the medical profession. It's probably everywhere in large-scale businesses.
It's literally everywhere. Yes.
So in a way, you'd be foolish to ignore well-being as an issue if you're a modern-day business owner.
I would, yes, of course, it's my business, and I would agree with that. But when I speak to businesses on a daily basis, we're looking at exactly that. And sometimes workplace well-being is used as a sticking plaster when the drama has already happened. Sick rates are high, staff is being stressed, burnout rates, you name it. And then there's we should do some workplace well-being. And it's so much easier and so much better to prevent all of this from happening. In the same way, when we're looking at mental health, we can help people feeling better before they get feeling worse.
I mean, it's that old adage of, prevention rather than cure, isn't it? It's probably a lot easier. It's probably a lot cheaper, that's for sure. But okay, well, look, let's move on because you mentioned about businesses there, because I'm keen to work out the link between businesses and performance in businesses. Because at the end of the day, if you implemented something like this, it can be expensive, or it could be.
Yeah.
And you talked earlier about return on investments. Just give us an idea in terms of rewards. What's in it for a business, without being cold and calculated about this? What is in it for a business? Why should they be doing this?
I think there's so much more than just a reduction in sick days. We're looking at, for example, more engaged staff. We're looking at people just simply being happier, and happier people make better decisions for the business. If people are well and they feel looked after, yes, this is another fluffy topic, I admit that, feeling looked after, but we're humans. We want to feel looked after. People are more productive. And it's just literally that we're getting to that point that a certain topic can simply be ticked off the list as a reason for sick days. I've seen it time and time again in the people
I'm going to pick you up on something there, and you said it is, it's a fluffy. I don't think it is a fluffy subject or topic at all, actually. I mean, Martyn, you as a business owner, you don't want people off sick, and you definitely want people working in the business that are happy, surely.
Yeah, I mean, obviously for us, we sort of see that as a no-brainer. I think most common sense business owners would understand a happy team as a productive team and that kind of thing. I think the other thing that I'm noticing a lot, we're doing lots of work with organizations at the moment, particularly in the recruitment and retention space, and in that space, particularly around, well, actually both, so this works really well in terms of retention. Of organization wrestling with their recruitment strategy at the minute. And into that comes, it comes in brand and mission and those kind of things. But people are looking and sort of saying, how well am I going to get looked after in this role? I think that is really growing. And that's definitely capturing the minds of some of the leaders in some of those organizations. Yeah.
And I've got another word with it's reputation. Because if you're not looking after your people and everybody is stressed and burnt out and unhappy, somebody will ask, I'd really like to work for that company. And they say, nah, maybe not. Yep. And reputation is a big thing these days. Well, it always has been. You have to have a good reputation as a business.
Yeah, again, I'm not going to pick on you today. You are our guest. But I'm going to sort of pick up on something that you said there. I think the reason it's changed is because the attitude towards team members or your staff has changed dramatically in the last 20, 30 years. And where I felt 30 years ago, I think staff or team members were seen as not disposable, but replaceable.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like good people are hard to find. So when you find them, surely you're better off just taking care of them, looking after them, and making sure they stay.
Yeah.
That's a fundamentally simple thing to do, isn't it?
You would think so.
Yeah, I guess so. Let me ask you about, let's say, for example, I'm a business owner and I want to bring in some sort of well-being culture. What do we do? What do you do to what's the first step on that journey?
For me, the first step is always talking to people. Talk to the team, talk to the leaders, see where the pinch points are, where are the problems. Because it's most likely that the pinch points of the leadership team are slightly different for the pinch points of the team. And aligning those and making sure that in the end everybody benefits, that's the first one. The second one is definitely bringing functions like internal comms on board, because creating stories around this, driving engagement, making sure that people are allowed to take the time to attend a session, to make some changes, to take a lunch break. How many meetings do you have over lunch? Those sorts of things.
Okay. Well, look, I mean, I'm going to come back in a bit and ask you about any tips that you may have. So I don't want to, but in terms of the rewards for doing this, and if, I don't want to put you on the spot, but what rewards are there for business owners in terms of taking this on board? Because let's be honest, there is going to be some cynicism or skepticism towards something like this.
Of course.
And if there is a budget line then attached to it, it makes it even harder to get that past your chief exec. What are the rewards? If I was going to sell this to my chief exec, how am I going to sell it to him? What's going to make him say, or her, what's going to make them say, we're going to go for that? That's brilliant. What are the rewards involved in wellbeing?
Only for the business or for the teams as well?
Well, either, because I think the whole thing is wrapped up.
It is, yeah, definitely. So first of all, when we're looking at the employees, we're looking at a whole range of mental and physical improvements. We're looking at better sleep, more energy, better stress resilience, all these sorts of things. Obviously, then reduced sick days, making sure we're okay, fine, that's the first benefit for the company. Because if 300 out of 300 people are at work, more work is done. But also when we're looking at a more engaged team and seeing that the entire team morale is massively elevated, when we're looking at leadership teams, the whole team aspect coming together, working towards a certain goal together, things like well-being challenges, doing together, me and the boss trying to, have a plank challenge, who can hold it longer. And I don't know, for you, probably a running challenge, I would guess. So something like that. It's bringing people together, and all of that results in better productivity, in people just simply being better at their job.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of pieces in there, and actually just reminded me of the conversation that we had before, because you said, things have changed over the last, say, 20, 30 years, that kind of stuff. And what I find really interesting now is that as a business leader, if somebody had said to me sort of 10 years ago, are you asking your staff whether they're getting enough sleep? Are you asking your staff whether they're getting enough exercise? Are you, I would have shied away from that. And thancfully, I think that's beginning to change, but there's still even, some part of you that think, well, how far do you go? But
I mean,
it's all aimed at the right thing, but
30 years ago, I think bosses were only interested in whether you were getting too much sleep and you weren't coming in on time. That's what they were worried about. Whereas now, you're right, it's that conversation. Are you eating well? Because the better you are, the better person you feel, the better you're going to perform.
Yeah.
But, and this isn't always about the bottom line. It is about caring for people. I genuinely feel we live in a more caring society than we did 10 years ago. I feel that.
Yeah.
But okay. Well, look, let's we're going to come on to this in a minute about any tips. So I want you to bear in mind that I'm going to come to you in a minute and ask for any tips that you've got about well-being. Something that you have touched on, and we talked off air as well, talked about data.
Mm-hmm.
So can you give me something top line in terms of proof
Yeah.
that this is that moves us away, and never to return to this fluffiness about this? So give me a bit of data that I can digest. It's nice and easy. And while you're giving me that data, I'm asking you to think about your tips as well. So it's a complicated one. So let's go with the data first.
Multitasking,
Right,
that doesn't work.
We're just watching you come up with this stuff. So,
okay, so I can, from my own perspective and the recent work I've done, where we had regular staff surveys, which of course are based on their perception. But we also used a scientific tool to really drill down on the numbers. So what we had after a 6-month program, we had a 78% of people felt more energy. We had 39% feeling less stressed. And we had only, and I'm getting to that in a second, we got only 10% who had better sleep. And the reason why I'm not worried about mentioning the only 10% is that sleep takes time. Sleep is something that takes practice to get that right. This is not something where you just say, okay, boing, now you sleep better.
Yeah,
but with all of these things, when they're all working together, like we all know that it's all linked. What your exercise, your nutrition, your sleep, your self-care, they're all interlinked. And we have known that over time that these numbers are actually going. And that's one of the points I'd like to point out. Well-being is never done. You will never get to that point where you can say, okay, fine, we did well-being and now everything's fine. It just needs to be carried on.
That's uncomfortable because I was about to say data, tick that box, but now I can't say that now.
No.
So, but let's
keep measuring.
keep measuring it.
Yeah.
Keep going. Right now, the other thing I wanted to talk to you then about is tips and advice. Let's say we're starting out. What do we do for our businesses? So the people listening or watching, they get something practical that they can do going forward.
I think the easiest thing to do first is an anonymous staff survey, and anonymous just simply to make sure that people are honest. Because if you have 30 people in your team and you're the only one who is ticking the box who says mental health problems, then maybe not. You wouldn't do that. So keep it anonymous. The second one is it's so super helpful to have your leadership team on board. I'm not saying it's impossible without them, but if they're going one way and still thinking that lunchtime meetings and pastries in the boardroom is the way forward, then it's a little bit more difficult to implement healthy ways of living in the rest of the company. And having somebody who is really flying the flag in the leadership team, maybe it's only one person. I mean, it would be lovely if it would all of them. But if it's one, and then, like I said, the involvement of internal comms, and this can be an external internal comms person, is that a word? Yeah. So it doesn't have to be somebody who is actually part of the team. Bring somebody external in because they have sometimes even more of an overview, which is easier. And last but not least, keep it going. The moment your workplace well-being advisor is gone, which would be nice if that wouldn't be the case, but just saying. But if that's the case, keep going. Do well-being challenges. Create recipe books on the internet. If you have a staff restaurant, make sure that the winning recipe every month will be cooked for a week for everybody. Little things. The chair races in the hallway. Health and safety permitting. Those sorts of things. It really keeps the momentum going. And that's what it's all about.
Well, look, I mean, I can't thank you enough for coming in and seeing us today on the Fueling Growth podcast, because actually it's been really helpful and you've given us some very practical advice here. You genuinely come across as someone that knows their stuff. I'm sure there's more we could delve into today, but you've at least dispelled this myth that this is a fluffy subject. And I think if we've achieved that today, That is a brilliant achievement. So Martyn, I applaud you for bringing Carola into the podcast today. It isn't something you dragged in off the street. She genuinely was an expert. So well done.
There you go.
So thank you very much, you guys, for your time. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll have a better, happier, healthier, more productive team of staff going forward. And I hope everyone does as well.